You know, I didn't really think I would have to constantly touch on this so much, but apparently I do. Okay, real answer is I really don't have to, but someone ends up getting nagged enough, you'll end up having to repeat yourself a billion times for these types of people. To give a short recap for those who are probably just listening to this video because you want information on what exactly I'm doing, it's been 10 years since I started my YouTube channel. By the time I'm recording this, it's actually July something, but I plan to get these up in advance, so then I can just basically focus on making some images, so then they can get up. So, Super Mario 64. You know, someone might ask, why is this not on the commentary channel? Well, it's all under the one umbrella anyway, so I don't really feel like that channel needs any more explanation than it already has. I've kind of done everything that I feel like I want to do on that one anyway, so yeah, it's sort of the prototype for what is gonna happen here. Where it's just gonna be up and anyone can see it if they so want, if it's cathartic for you to listen to me trashing some random man's videos. This isn't just gonna be about that channel, it's also just gonna be in general. So, Super Mario 64. There's two sides of this, really, to me. There's the SMG4 side and the Jacob side. Something I really want to make a whole lot clearer. I actually had an interview with a person about this. They never put it up because they couldn't really find a way to make it all put together. But, then, I never really got to explain to the public why I don't really care as much anymore. And I don't think I really did it in a way that was sort of putting it justice. But to put a long story short, as I have said this before, it's just that it was in a long 6 series set of really long thingies that nobody listened to. So these are 3, hopefully individually cohesive ones to wrap up the whole scenario, I guess. A couple years ago, I decided, after a couple years of what had been a hiatus, I had decided to return to Enzo's server and all that. I'd left for a reason that I don't remember. Must have been something or other. Must have been one of my explosions again. I don't particularly fully remember. It was very long ago and the reason was very, very rash, so I don't particularly have full, clear memories of it. But after I returned, this was when they were trying to arrest Starman 3 for like what had supposedly been the 5th time up to that point due to incidences that had happened years ago that pointed to all the typical behavior you've probably heard of up to this point regarding him. I mean, there was a Twitter thing several years ago, for those who were aware of that, where several old people came out and were just like, he did this and he did this, and it was this big old Me Too campaign. Basically, if people were still making truth videos, there'd be a gold mine there, is all I'm saying. And look, I don't necessarily put down anyone who wants to use the video I made when I left to vent, because obviously he's still doing it to this day. You know, putting an illusion in front of young children, easily deceivable children's faces, to make them think that they're talking to a fellow internet nerd when they're really just talking to a bumbling old man who really has no concept of dealing with children. Nothing of what he said in that video that I made specifically was things he actually said. It was things based off of the feelings that I had at the time, because, was that the video I also posted a document of all the chat logs I'd had up to that point? I was under a lot of, disillusionment with, some of the things that I believed that he was versus what reality actually wanted to tell me. That said, he was not as bad as, like, other people made him out to be. This isn't me defending him at all, but I don't necessarily want to be put on the same pedestal as a bunch of other people, because all we ever had were petty arguments. In reality, while I might have been hurt then, and I was hurt then, it doesn't really reflect on me now, because it was just a classic case example of the type of thing on the internet that you just have to be careful and wary of. Things that those same people who came out and expressed that he asked them to send nudes or do something lewd or something, probably wouldn't have practiced, or would have thought it'd be silly to practice. Before I came on the internet, even before I made my channel, even before I just did anything, I was aware of the potential dangers of people like him, that there were, like, individuals that were bad. I'm saying this from the perspective of what I believed at the time, that there were bad people on the internet, and I had to be really careful around them. This is also why I stayed around in so many calls as I did, because, well, you can't really fake a voice so much. You can definitely put on an image, but you can't really fake a voice. You can't, well, okay, yes, there are voice changes, but that's not what I mean. You can't change your tone of voice, the way you speak, the way you're speaking in a certain situation. Like, unless, like, you know, you're not really... The person you're talking to is easily manipulatable in the first place, in which case, like, then it's obvious. And, you know, then you're not prepared. Before I joined the internet, I had, I'm gonna keep this very, private, mostly, but one of those bad internet pedophile people, got involved with somebody I know. And it was really devastating. And this was like, it was only a year or so before I joined YouTube when this happened. So that and a bunch of internet, preparedness videos from, like, school and such had, sort of toughened me to the nature of the internet is not exactly the saccharine place that many people expect it to be. And so, on that level, I was prepared, especially because at 14, 15, a lot of innuendos flew over my head. I would not have understood any of them. Good example, I think, is Skype Conversation Battle 11. I have a private, unlisted version of it on my channel, where I had recorded like 5 minutes more of a beginning portion of the argument, which actually gives a bit more context as to what happened, but I digress. Good example is around the end of that, where one of them says something that's particularly I don't really want to go into detail on it, but they say something that is quite inappropriate, and so several people then leave the call because they get it and it's gross. That's an example of I called him out for causing people to leave for some reason. That reason I didn't understand at that point. But I didn't really get it. Even if I was calling him out, I didn't really understand what exactly it was that was so... You could almost say I'm like a 2-year-old when it came to that back then. I did not and was not exposed to any of that before, like, not even just that conversation. It actually took me a fair while to understand what exactly they meant. So, there's that in play. There's also the fact that I didn't roleplay because I didn't really like roleplaying. I still don't. I basically got shunted out of it at a very early point on the internet, and I just got I didn't really like it. It felt I much prefer controlling the environment of a written scenario more often, which is what birthed the scripts. So, there's that, the fact that I don't roleplay, there's the fact that I didn't understand sexual stuff, so even if he brought it up, that would have been a bad sign. I would have understood. This is me perfectly assuming after the fact at this point. And then there's also everything that led up to our original meeting, which, there's probably, I don't even know if there's even many people that remember it now. So, to cut a long story short, I get on a chat room after watching a bazillion videos. I stay in the chat room for a long time, listen to them on a couple podcasts that are just some random people messing around on the internet, basically. And, after a while, we slowly grow closer together. A joke about me in one of those podcasts sends him crazy, myself too at the time. And then at the end of a very hot summer day, then I joined YTR. Something I haven't really talked is that on that day was when I, for one, got Skype. Two, had a call with him. And this call was not very long. It was mostly just, it was actually midnight over there. This was my first introduction to the fact that the time zone was off. And it was a call that I had. I don't think I had earphones at that point. At least not ones that I plugged into the computer. So his voice was playing on the speaker, very well audible to everyone within range, which is only a few people in this household. So he had to be aware, especially due to how echoey my microphone is now that I think about it in retrospect. He had to be aware that there was at least some level of supervision, or at least some level of me having distance from the internet enough to talk to another individual about what exactly I'm into and interested in. So, with all of this combined, I don't think it would have been a suitable environment for him to have brought up any of those things that other people say they had brought up, because a lot of those circumstances were people who were probably in secret, who were going at it alone, basically, who were not reporting on things as they happen. Not that I have to report on everything that happens. I didn't exactly report everything or talk about everything, but the fact was I set the precedent from our very first call that when we talk, even if his voice is mostly gonna play through earphones and stuff, that I'm in an environment where I'm very perfectly aware that if you say anything strange, I'm going to be suspicious. So, I would imagine with all of these factors in play, this probably prevented him from doing any of that stuff to me. With how slow I was, with how I don't roleplay, and with how I set the precedent that my environment was not favorable for those sorts of conditions. Even with the fact that I mostly woke up in the mornings, the fact was I set that precedent in the first place, so it wouldn't have worked out all that well. And not to mention, it wouldn't have hit me where it hurt. The only things that I sort of remember him where it could have actually resulted in something that could have been attempts to manipulate me on a lesser level were attempts to try and promote me to co-leader, which he was doing to everyone at the time, so I suppose, like, that's not really an exclusive ordeal. Or things where he gave me, privileges that other people didn't have in an attempt to convince me that I'm special or something, because most of what I talked about was videos, logic of videos, or stories, stuff like that, and of course, you know, whatever they were talking about at the time. I didn't really make it a thing to talk about anything going on in my real life besides, oh yeah, school's a pain. So I wasn't really... Okay, I was bothered enough to make a dozen bazillion videos about commentaries, but those commentaries were just me, like, experimenting with my own reaction times, as well as, you know, trying to point out that even if all I'm doing is just analyzing some random man's videos because that's all I was recommended one day and now I'm bored and don't have anything to do as a teenager, that, like, this is what I think, at the very least, because there was, at the time, this unparalleled, positive bias, especially considering YouTube, the algorithm favors the videos so much that even though his channel got deleted twice, they still don't like getting rid of those videos because they rake in views or something, obviously, because of their age. And, I know, obviously, for some people it's very cathartic to hear me meticulously analyze most of the bits and pieces that I wanted to get to in those reaction commentary videos. But that's all I wanted to do, because when I came back to Enzo's group and they tried to arrest him again for whatever, it severed us all from me and Enzo forever because of the reaction that he displayed towards it, including everything involving the separate server, including everything involving his mood swings, which was what resulted in his downward spiral, including what banned me from the group. Because even though I participated in that server and was in the original group where they were talking about the bad things that Jacob had done to Momo and all that, I'm not saying his actions are justifiable. They're not. But it's not fair to also not put the blame as well on other individuals as well. Because if you were one of those people, you have to accept that it was in some way a result of your own lack of preparedness. Because in the end, all I ended up with was a few petty arguments, and now I don't really like a dude anymore. That's it. It's not to the point where I think about him every day. It's not to the point where I want to even, like, just continue to trash on it. I did it once, it's done, it's dusted, I'm done. I'm a lot older now than I was when I made the videos commentating, and when I even made that, venti video immediately after I left. I'm a lot older than I was then. And I do not need to care, because even when I was in those groups and servers, I didn't really find it much of a help to really talk about anything, because nothing of what I did or of what happened was that intense, or was things that I wasn't prepared for, because again, like I said with what I mentioned with the criteria, where he very probably, in my opinion, probably wouldn't have been able to do any of that stuff. Like, he couldn't have brought any of that into the equation without looking strange in some way. Any of the role-playing, any of the innuendos or whatever, or asking me for body pictures or something. Especially when I don't have a webcam. I also made it clear for a fair while after that I'm on a desktop computer most of the time, and I don't really have a webcam. I do have one, but it's very low quality, and by the time I had gotten one, I was already out of the group, so he couldn't really ask me for pictures where I didn't have any. Oh, and also, my phone was on the way to dying at that point, I think. By the time I had joined that group, I did have one, but it was dying, and then it, like, died, like, maybe that year when I was, in the group. And I never got a replacement. It's still dead. I have phones, but they're not the types of phones that you take pictures with, and I certainly wouldn't have done it even if that were the case, so that wouldn't have worked either. It's, when you're a sheltered, like, little techie like me, it's not really a need. So, it wasn't as severe, so I don't really participate in it nowadays as much. Because there's just not much to actually bother over. Now, why would you even think I'd still bother with this? It's mostly because I want to deal with the SMG4 side of things. Because, for some reason, I still have people somehow thinking I'm associated with that just because I was on the wiki once and talked with a couple of people who were in that. And not to mention, people probably presume because of my geographical location that I'm a whole lot closer than I really am. Okay, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to put this. I stopped watching SMG4 the second time in like 2017, 18. They were just uploading like to the gaming channel like Mario Party videos, and they weren't really saying anything interesting, and it had gotten to the point where a lot of their content was just not fun to watch for me. So I just it was like eating Fruit Loops at my age. Like, I liked it as a very young kid, but now it's just like, oh god, I hate it. So it's it kind of sucks. So I don't really want to be the person who is associated with it anymore, because it's just not my thing. I do remember I got a comment on my Flounder Heights because SMG4 had used it in a video once. That's cool, but you really don't need to tell me if I end up in an SMG4 video or not, because the people who are watching SMG4 are not really going to be the types of people. Maybe a couple of them, maybe a couple of the wiki people will be the people who will then see that I'm the person who made the map or whatever. Because if I went over this in the YouTube one, but I don't really think a lot of people on my YouTube are the types of people that want to bother to do their own research some of the time. So, not everyone is like that, obviously, but I feel it's a big enough degree now where, like, I don't necessarily want to cater to it. So that's also why I'm leaving YouTube as well after these 10 years of experimenting. I go more into it in the YouTube video. I'm not going to stop making videos forever, it's mostly just YouTube itself. So, yeah. As for my relationship with SMG4 in general, it was always a distant thing. We never knew each other, really, any more than just being random internet people. Yeah, sure. And, we maybe had a little bit of kinship in regards to 2016, which was the final year of school, and so we were under the same, because we're in the just same general location, under the same tests, rules, and regulations that were going on. Sure, because it's a statewide thing, but, I didn't know him physically. Yes, okay, in terms of most of the big famous internet people that made SM64 videos, I'm probably the closest person geographically to SMG4 than a lot of the other people, unless there were people in his school or something that also did. But, of people that made it in the videos, or that made it in the videos by proxy or something, yes, okay, closest person geographically probably is me. But we've never met, we've never done that sort of thing. he is in a location where I can physically visit, compared to a lot of other people where they live, where good luck. So, the idea that I am related to being around just because I was around once is kind of awkward, especially when I'm not involved with even the wiki anymore, because circumstances really led me astray all that time ago. I really don't want to talk about it. But even then, I don't necessarily want to clean up what people don't necessarily want cleaned up, so... And not to mention, I'm kind of done with cleaning up. I'm kind of done with Wikia in general. Sorry, I'm not going to call it fandom, it's a dumb name. I'm going to call it Wikia, because that's what I signed on to. One thing I will request, though... Can you please not use random icons that I've made for other things, other social media things on there, as if, like, they're related to the chronology of my life on there or something? When I was on there, I was like, oh god, 14, 15. If I'm making avatars for my Twitter or something, I'm not necessarily making them to, like, extend the Pinkalol canon or something, as part of the SMG4 thing. Please, can you stop using, like, the dozens of avatars I've made since on things like that? It bothers the heck out of me if I ever end up stumbling upon them by complete accident or something, that, like, you're using my current avatar that I'm using on all my other social media, to just... as just random photos in the gallery for padding. Can you please not? It's partially why I don't hang around anymore, because a lot of it is people just grabbing things so then they can make things look bigger than they are, when the rest of the page is filled with, like, mess. And I'm not even just talking SMG4 wiki, I'm just talking wikia. That's a lot of wikia in general. If you want to find my current avatars, maybe you can make somewhere where you can, like, store some sort of archive version of every person's avatar. Maybe then you can do that, but... I find the idea of just archiving all my Splatoon avatars when I'm not doing it related to my Super Mario 64 character, just to be a little bit awkward. It's not related. It's literally just because I run around in another community as well. Doesn't mean that it's related or whatever. Kinda sends a bit of the wrong message, in my opinion. And sort of ties into what I'm about to talk about next, and the last point that I'll bring up before I end this one. My canned series, which I didn't really elaborate on. I talked about this when I made a video announcing that I wasn't going to make SM64 videos anymore. I did make one more after that, but that was my promise because that was what I wanted to do as my parting before I stopped. I can't really record SM64 nowadays. Mostly because, like, cropping it is a pain, and even trying to record without all the frame jittery nonsense that I get with several recorders is just, it's not gonna happen now. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do it as well as I used to. With all the things that I had to have open, and even if it has been streamlined, I don't necessarily feel that's the direction I want my story to take. For the curious, If you were interested, I know some people liked Coif. There was going to be a series after Coif. Back when I was making it, I wanted Coif to not be the last thing I did, but unfortunately, I guess it doesn't turn out that way. But, well, okay, technically not, but how many people are going to watch a 5-minute video over nothing? So, it was basically going to be a thing where a sort of, I don't want to call it bloopers because I don't like the word bloopers in regards to this. The word blooper, the thing blooper, not the squid. A blooper is an off-screen skit that got recorded. For, like, you know, backgroundsy video type things. The thing I made for Coif, where I pretended all the characters were actors and recorded all my failures, those are bloopers. Not random comedic skits or whatever that people have colloquialized them to be. And so, calling this a blooper would have been, no, it's not, that wouldn't have been right. Would have, the idea of it was an episodic, series where it was gonna kind of be like Coif in terms of the fact that there was an overarching plot, but most of them were going to be focused on one subject matter or another. Remember that I focused my character's world on the fused 4-dimensional world thingamabobby. So I was going to do a lot of things where Pascal Mario was not really going to be a ghost and was going to be abused by Starman 3 for acting to be one because he's such a bad dude. Things like those color characters that he made in that one video, we're gonna get like a whole episode dedicated to them, and some new characters that we're gonna fix up the end of the color wheel. I didn't make it very far. Some of these had scripts, but mostly only the early ones. Others just have small synopses based off of, like, things that me and my friends did in calls that I would act out and make it into a synopsis for a thing that I would then make a script around if I was going to get up to that point. Then the series basically got too many characters in it, and a lot of those characters were people who ended up not wanting their characters in it. And especially around the midpoint of the story, where everyone was going to gain superpowers. Yeah, very tried, but a lot of it was just simple element stuff that they had shown off in avatars, or they had said as such in videos or the like, trying to pull every single power and give everyone sort of some sort of associated thing, including my own character, who would have just gotten literally the ability to freeze everything. And I know if you follow everything of what I've been doing, that kind of sounds obnoxious, but it's more like I would have just used a cheat code to stop everything, and then my character would have just been like, "What? Is this something I did?" But it would have it's the only thing I would have reasonably been able to do with that is a sort of alternate universe where everyone's personalities are different, where like all my friends are evil and Starman 3 is the good guy, but only in this universe. Clearly, if you There was a Sonic comic based on this exact premise, and you can basically tell where my inspiration basically came from for most of it. But again, most of it was just synopsis. I can probably just pull those out, and maybe the scripts if one wants to see. I mostly just made a whole bunch of logic regarding this dimensional stuff before I canned it, because obviously people weren't really interested in me using their color codes anymore, so I kind of had to write out them being characters. And so when I wanted to have a portion of like the story being everyone gains powers and then they leave, kind of can't really work when those people aren't there to gain the powers in the first place, so then they can, you know, react and then leave with it later. It's like, it's and I know, obviously, I probably wouldn't have needed to have all this credit stuff, but given everything that occurred, it just kind of really sucked. So, yeah. And I know, the idea of freezing things sounds particularly obnoxious if you have followed me for literally since the beginning of Forever, where I did have a Sonic character, fan character, who had cryokinesis and had the ability to literally freeze things. But no, it was not going to be related. Okay, only if you use the word freeze, but not in a direct homage way. I stopped using that character a long time ago due to ideas about my self-image. I don't really want that to be the image that represents me. If someone finds it in the past, okay, sure, it's a character I used. It's not necessarily like what's supposed to be my avatar or something. It's just some stupid thing a 13-year-old did when they joined the internet, so. But, yeah, basically, plot of the series, I don't even know what it was going to be called at this point. Something Dimensions. Basically, a whole bunch of episodic things, basically cleaning up tons of logical holes with a lot of the characters in Stummin' Through's videos, because I had color codes for them, so I figured why the hell not, I might as well. Everyone gains powers, everyone from the internet, people I know and played with, leave. My character leaves, end of series, I'm done. that was it. And most of it is just synopsis of some random episode things that I had ideas for. Some are scripted, but they are not going to actually be realized. And yeah, that's basically it. My involvement with people who have been from this era is mostly just me catching up with old friends. I'm not actually trying to start anything, I'm not actually trying to do anything. I don't really have the motivation to do any of that much anymore. Not that I'm going to criticize anyone else who does. Again, you're allowed to use the color code that I had in that video where I said that I left for anything that you want. But I don't want to be pinged as if it's some sort of current thing. Just because you're using the CC doesn't mean that I have to be involved or that I have to be alluded to as using that CC currently for anything. I just don't want to be the person that's like, ah yeah, I don't like color codes anymore. Don't use me when it's just a hex code of numbers and letters. Just use it. I don't care, but just don't pretend like it's some sort of current version of an image for me. It's not. So anyway, that's the end of my clarification for the SM64 stuff. To re-clarify, this is me ending YouTube. I want to move on to other websites, and YouTube is just not for me anymore. And if you want a clarification on any of this stuff, well, I hope you've gotten it tenfold. Oh, and as for the Star Road stuff, before I fully end it. Yeah, okay. I know. There are like dozens and dozens and dozens of other like ROM hacky things where people used the same sequence for whatever it was, okay? No one requested me for anything, and now that's closed. It was never open in the first place because nobody said anything. Gotta love when you're that person who's like, it's open, and then the door is basically open for no reason. Wow. Great. So, yeah, if you like the Star Road stuff, good on you. Hope you like looping it for years to come. It's not going away, but, please don't assume my entire channel is that. I wasn't joining YouTube specifically for that. And, especially not specifically for SM64. That was just one phase of a number of experiments that I was doing.